It's my pleasure now to introduce Pearly Chen from HTC. She's going to talk about things in a broader sense, what's going on in terms of the impact of VR in the enterprise at large. I'm so excited to have Pearly join us. I've known her for many years now, and I know she's been a strong engine to move things forward. Many of the academic groups and early stage VR product development companies, and I know the larger one that we saw earlier with Penumbra, rely upon HTC for their technology. And it's been such an important contribution, and I know that the values of HTC reflect paying attention to this very important zone. So Pearly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you so much for inviting me. I was a little nervous about speaking as the only non-PhD, non-MD speaker on this conference, but hopefully I can bring a slightly different perspective, having operated with HTC on the front line of immersive technology for the past now 9 years, primarily as part of the leadership team, but also investing in early stage companies and different technologies, content, and hopefully elevating the whole ecosystem and ultimately achieve our vision of how to use immersive technologies for enhancing society. And what that means can be very, very different things for different people. It could be unleashing human imagination on a very fundamental level. It could be democratizing amazing experiences to everybody, or it could be some life-changing stories like a lot of the better patient outcomes that have been covered today. So I thought we would probably start there with the story, a physician-patient story on how VR, immersive surgery planning, and patient engagement has changed a life. And then from there, I thought we would zoom out a little bit and move away from the clinical use of VR, which we've heard a lot of very exciting research and discussions today that I'm personally extremely excited about. But also we can look at the broader sense of what this whole hype of metaverse really means, why it matters to every one of us, what are some of the technical components and jargons and different aspects that we need to walk away from this conference being a little bit more informed and knowledgeable about. So maybe we'll start there. So with that, I'd like to share this story, which we've actually not released anywhere before. So you'll be probably the only audience the first time to see this story, and I'm excited to share.
I don't know how else to describe VR and VR planning except to say that it's a huge, huge leap forward. With VR planning, the opportunity to take a surgery from start to finish and really practice your craft ahead of time is invaluable. As a pediatric subspecialist, when I place a VR system on my patient, my child, it changes everything for them. They saw me as a white coat right up to that point, and the moment that I gave them that controller, I'm in their world. I'm speaking their language. This is their reality, and they welcome me in a way that I've been searching for all this time. We were able to talk more easily about what has to happen. They themselves understand what's going on. If they came into this with either fear or anxiety, that is also melted away because they had this better understanding. So it's a huge, huge advantage for my patients. But even at a more fundamental level, to see a worried parent who clearly has not slept well in weeks or months, who can't eat anymore, whose reality is completely upended, to see that when they walk in, to see the calm that comes over them, there's just really no words to describe that. Jade's story was unique because of where her tumor was. When I looked at her MRI, I already immediately started thinking, well, how am I going to get there? I can't tell you how much time I spent scrolling back and forth in different two-dimensional planes trying to put this puzzle together in my mind. But as luck would have it, I had access to VR planning for Jade's case. I was able to fly in virtually and walk around her tumor and study each individual vessel in its entirety. Once I got to the tumor, I knew exactly where all these vessels were with respect to each other. I knew where I had to slow down and which vessels I could rapidly move my way through. And tumor came out in its entirety. This is a case where virtual planning made all the difference, I think, for her surgery. Jade's a very smart cookie. As I was flying her through and trying to keep my professional game face on, she reached up and tried to grab her virtual tumor in midair and started smiling and then almost giggling. And if I could script a patient experience in any way to get my patient and my family through a really scary process, I wouldn't script it any other way. And I really am fortunate that I've got this technology to help my families.
I will never forget this story. I had the opportunity of meeting Jade and meeting Dr. Curtis, and these are the kind of stories that really keep us motivated on what is a field that requires quite a lot of imagination and persistence and patience. Since answering my own question, we're not quite there yet. The metaverse has not arrived yet, and the wide adoption of virtual reality and immersive technologies are not here yet. But we're seeing a lot of very profound use of this technology that are making tangible impact in people's lives today. Some of these examples I'll share, but this is probably one of my favorite examples, and I hope you enjoy that story. So we are going to take a look at what is metaverse anyway. I wish there was interaction with the audience. I would love to hear what is everyone's current comprehension of what this word means. Right, I don't see any. I don't know if the YouTube comment is live, but this metaverse phrase was first coined in Neil Stephenson's 1992 novel called Snow Crash, and later on popularized by Ernest Cline's 2011 novel of Ready Player One, which was later on made into a Hollywood movie directed by Steven Spielberg. Oftentimes, metaverse is imagined as the natural evolution of the internet, but an embodied version. So you're no longer just having access to a 2D interface of information or an application on a mobile, but you embody it, you're part of it. And this metaverse becomes a shared and real-time and persistent and always on type of virtual space for unlimited amount of people. That's probably my best try at trying to define what some of these technology components and definition is for this very scientific prediction or vision of the metaverse. Of course, some of these scientific science fiction have tried to depict a pretty dystopian version of what that could mean to our psyche, our mental health, and different things. But I think they also provide some prediction into some of the positive benefits and hints that we can take from in building this next evolution of the internet. Why is this phrase suddenly catching a lot of attention? Is because a lot of the world's biggest company from the internet era are starting to put themselves on the front line to say that the next evolution of Facebook, of Microsoft, of all these very large companies will be the metaverse. And of course, we have been trying to imagine what this could mean. What are some of the fundamental technologies that need to be invested in and supported to ultimately achieve some sort of immersive technology and wider adoption where society can benefit from its very many different possibilities. But we're still a ways away. And before this can happen, we can kind of shift our focus to more of a today's technology and understand some of the jargons that you would normally hear on this virtuality continuum. My slide is not advancing anymore, but let me try to refresh that. Clicker. So now, oh, there you go. So the virtuality continuum. You might often wonder, people talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, XR, mixed reality. What's the difference? How do they all play a different role? Are they a continuum or not? So basically this concept was coined in 1994. So you have a physical reality that you see with your human eyes on the very left end. And on the very far end is a fully simulated, 3D simulated, computer generated immersive environment where you're completely transported to another world. And the idea is that between the base reality and the fully virtual reality, there could be different combinations where digital objects augment your real world or real objects augment your digital world. So different combination of augmented reality, augmented virtuality, virtual reality, and just your base reality. And ultimately, whether there needs to be a distinction, they're just all about fusing 3D creative real-time immersive content to give us the right application at the right time. Ultimately, what we imagine is a pair of lightweight glasses that you can wear that will shift dynamically between the right combination as your use case requires it. And so that's the ultimate goal, isn't it, for anybody to have a low cost, lightweight, comfortable form factor to access the immense possibilities of the virtual world and metaverse. And we're not quite there yet, again, but a lot of interesting advances are happening. So this is a video to demonstrate. Connection lost. I apologize. So this is a quick video to demonstrate that the concept of how this can be as a continuum, not so much a very distinction between what VR, AR really is. Are we requiring different technology blocks to achieve them? It can just be a different combination of virtual and digital. And ultimately, our physical and virtual worlds combined together. So if we were to imagine that we ultimately spend more of our time in these digital realities that advances our physical reality in some way, we have to think about how we can bring ourselves into those worlds. So multisensory input becomes very important. So we have seen technologies like eye tracking, enabling peripheral rendering, enabling understanding of users' engagement and focus, and as well as facial tracking to bring very lifelike animation of the user into the virtual world. And of course, hand tracking to make the virtual interaction that much more intuitive. We're even seeing neural interfaces using EEG or neuromuscular signals and put them into a machine learning pipeline to translate into control of your digital environment and to understand your focus level, your mood, etc. So these are different type of technology components that are trying to help us bring more of ourselves and express more of ourselves in the virtual environment, including full body tracking. And what this can unleash is tons of different creativity in the virtual world where people can fully express themselves, animate the digital representation of themselves in a way that was not really possible before. And then virtual environments like VR chat and Engage and very many different other platforms where this is becoming more and more possible, we start to see a lot of creators bring their ingenuity and creativity in a completely new level that also gives us a glimpse of what that future metaverse could look like, because the metaverse ultimately does not, I try to define that earlier, but also it definitely requires a thriving economy as well, where creators can create, they can be compensated in a way that would keep that virtual economy thrive, so that people will continue to come back and generate the positive momentum. So this is an example of sorry, this is so delayed. So this is, for example, a virtual meeting environment that we developed out of necessity for global collaboration between our colleagues in different locations. We wish to bring more of a sense of togetherness in this age of physical isolation, right? Especially during the pandemic. So we would create different avatars of ourselves, and then we would go into these different conference rooms and virtual environments where you can have a shared sense of togetherness because it feels spatial. So you would remember who were sitting on your left or right in which environment, and you co-create memories in a way that was not possible at all through a video conference call that we have been doing a lot of. And there are plenty of other examples of these virtual collaboration, meeting software, etc. Because virtual reality that's really one of the best benefits of that spatial cognition of tricking your brain thinking that you're somewhere else, but also in the same space. And that is really, really precious for collaboration, and which you'll see how this is beneficial for all kinds of collaboration in other ways of productivity as well. But so how we link from today's meeting, virtual collaboration meeting software, to the metaverse would be that ultimately the concept of metaverse would be something that is very interoperable between different worlds. Today, in different kinds of applications and worlds, you would have a different avatar system, different identity system, that you cannot carry over to another. And ultimately, for that metaverse imagination, a user should be able to carry your identity, your information, your avatar across different worlds, so that you're free to travel between these different universes without hindrance. And again, we're not there yet. This was the beginning of the pandemic, when the Ford global offices were closed, and
so
then car projects.
Headsets on,
sorry, can we
mute
the video, please?
Controllers, move the
There we go. So any type of since we're intuitively three-dimensional senses, so any kind of collaboration, design, engineering projects that require walk around, understanding in spatial sense are great use cases of VR. Car design, manufacturing is definitely one. They used to, probably some projects continue to use clay models. So it's very, very tactile. It requires a lot of people to be in the same place, requires different materials and space. In virtual reality, the benefit is very self-explanatory. It can be infinitely scalable. The collaboration, remote collaboration promise is very, very clear. This is another example of a molecular design tool where you visualize different molecules and proteins and how they interact with each other, helping scientists better accelerate their collaboration process, drug discovery. It was used in better understand the COVID virus as well. So as you can imagine, anything that requires this special understanding, just like what we were talking about in surgical planning, virtual reality is very, very natural fit. And this is Bell, the company that first broke the sound barrier, using virtual realities, virtual mock-up, collaboration capabilities to bring this from concept to a full-scale model within just 6 months, which is some 10 times faster than their usual process. So some real validated return on investment using virtual reality in the commercial space has been broadly observed, and we are seeing customers not going beyond the proof of concept stage and going into fuller, broader, bigger scale deployment already in design engineering and visualization, simulation, and also more recently, virtual events. We ourselves have been hosting a lot of events that are traditionally physical in the virtual reality space. And what this enables is, beyond video conferencing, is that you also have the serendipity moment where you can run into an old colleague or a friend or your customers, and have those serendipitous conversations like you would in a physical conference, but not possible in a video conference such as this one. And the spatial audio, the sense of immersion really makes that possible. And again, co-creating memories that are not otherwise possible. And you can create all kinds of effects. You can be in any kind of location. And we found a lot of success in engaging our audience in conferencing and virtual events using virtual reality. And a lot on the live entertainment side of things, we have seen, of course, Travis Scott this concert inside Fortnite that had 12 million concurrent users participating. This was last year. A lot of different celebrities experimenting with motion capture, animated virtual concerts, whether it's John Legend or Jean-Michel Jarre last year for the city of Paris. A lot of these experiments are bringing new ways of creativity, engaging fans, and again, just sort of getting us a little closer to showing the world what it means to use these 3D real-time virtual environments for our use today, but also imagine what that could be in the future. Even for film festivals like Venice Film Festival, who have been consistently hosting their what is traditionally a physical showcase on the Vecchio Island in Venice in VR. So everybody can, from the comfort of their home, board that gondola, go on the red carpet, and go and get themselves immersed in these selected experiences. And to me, that is truly a very cool democratizing feature of virtual reality. Or this virtual fashion show sponsored by the Verizon media. Well, it might not necessarily replace the catwalk immediately. It definitely unleashes some possibilities of what virtual fashion and real-time events could look like in the future. And there's our arts and cultural program, like this one where we work with the museums like the Louvre from Paris in bringing Mona Lisa to life as part of the Leonardo da Vinci exhibition in 2019. So different institutions are trying to use new technologies like virtual reality to engage your audience in a new way that is very different from how they would otherwise imagine it to be. Or this Curious Alice in Wonderland exhibit with the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. In the corporate setting, we're also seeing broad range of training applications. So imagine a lot of the soft skills and hard skill process-based training, hands-on training. Virtual reality is a very efficient way to roll that out in a scalable fashion. This, for example, is a virtual human-based simulation powered by conversational AI, so that employees can train their soft skills, leadership skills, communication skills, and having those difficult conversations, or they can be trained in different scenarios. When these 3D content can be created pretty scalably, the different users, the corporate users, can create their custom scenarios pretty effortlessly and give their employees much better recall, much better engagement with what they're supposed to be trained with. And this is another example of virtual reality being used by law enforcement officers to train de-escalation techniques, being rolled out in Phoenix Police Department, for example, with our partner Axon. Again, a lot of these otherwise hazardous training scenarios in real life are a perfect match for virtual reality. Fire department training, using eye tracking and using very realistic simulation tools like this can ensure that firefighters, law enforcement officers can be trained in a way that is otherwise difficult to achieve and expensive and hazardous to achieve in real life. And so these are some of our favorite examples. Of course, you have earlier heard a lot of different healthcare medical examples, like the one with Penumbra, and Walter has also mentioned this. We are so privileged to have been able to play a small part in their bold vision in rolling this out to impact millions and hundreds of millions of patients' outcome. And these are truly some of our favorite use cases of virtual reality. Pain management was one we heard earlier from Beth's presentation. Another area that we've invested in, as well as more of a recreational use, therapeutic use for older adults in skilled nursing facilities and beyond. But ultimately, regardless of, this is yet another application of a company that we've invested in, using VR as a real-time surgical imaging system. And here's a short video to kind of demonstrate what that means when immersive interfaces are converged with computer vision using light field rendering in the operating theater, as well as robotic advances and big data. So here's a short video to have a peek at that.
Surgeons, just like in any field, it's a bell curve. When you have digitized the entire visual stream of an operation longitudinally over the case, imagine what you can do with that data. I can start to understand the nuances of that surgery. I can then aggregate 1,000 of those same type of cases to understand why was there a good outcome and maybe why there was a bad outcome. I can then teach to those for the next case in the 10th case, and the 100th case that comes next, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. And I can provide information to the surgeon that's aggregated across thousands of operations to make them better. One of the unique opportunities for ProPrio is to democratize surgery, to bring cutting-edge technology to every surgeon around the world. Could you imagine if surgeons anywhere, any place, anytime could access the world's volume of knowledge and information to perform surgery on that patient that day to the highest level of quality available anywhere in the world? That's what we want to achieve.
So again, we briefly walked through different use cases of virtual reality today in hopes of giving us some imagination towards what the future could look like. And this example that we just played, ProPrio, it really presents a case of convergence, right? This future will require a lot of different technical components. It's not just virtual reality, which is one immersive interface to access ultimately the metaverse and all of its benefits, but there are very many other different technologies that need to mature to bring that vision to life. There's AI, there's blockchain as an underlying fabric for that economic layer. There's identity, there's payment, and there's a lot of different factors that we still need to consider. And there's network, and there's compute power. So a lot of innovation in real-time engine, in 5G, in cloud and edge computing are happening in a rapid speed, and they all seem a little silo and unrelated at times. So ultimately, the convergence with a lot of different components that we're watching will ultimately bring that vision of the metaverses to life, and that's what we're really excited about. And I'll close with this last slide. Sorry, the clicker is such a challenge. So it's primum non nocere, right? So it's the first do no harm Hippocratic oath that I think really resonates well here in defining it. Of course, this is an oath to the patient, providing the best care, but by doing no harm first. But in us, the parallel to us building this cutting edge tomorrow's technology that can present a lot of different concerns too, whether it's privacy, whether it's different ethical concerns, what it really means to prevent the dystopian future imagined by sci-fi authors from not happening. There's a lot of responsibilities in designing, investing, enabling in these new technologies, so that when the metaverse actually does arrive, it can benefit the most amount of people as possible, and we can do our very best to reduce the potential harm. But I would urge, I think it would like this, the audience to take away with this, to stay optimistic and believe in the promise of such technologies. Of course, technology advancements always bring a lot of different concerns, and there's always double-edged sword. But as we have all seen, how a lot of the profound impacts on people's lives today is really what motivates us to continue investing and believing and building. And hopefully, when that future does come, we'll all be happy and proud that we have done our part. So thank you. That concludes my presentation today. I would be happy to take questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pearly. That was amazing. It's just great to see how many different, opportunities there are out there, and how some of them, many of them may come back to have an impact in healthcare. I mean, I'm even thinking of the one, you're showing in Venice, like, putting that patients in isolation and having them do shared experiences in places like that really seems like, a way you could take an otherwise entertainment, type feature and use it for people in healthcare. Are there any questions for Pearly? Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, Dr. Lewis, and thank you, Walter.